Hello, Melissa here with you today, and today's project is this wearable poncho or blanket. It comes complete with a very thick and fuzzy hood to keep your head warm, and I'm going to show you how to make this, and we're going to talk about how to adapt it to different sizes as well, and drafting your own hood so that you can customize this to whoever you want to sew it for, and that makes it a great gift. So I'll meet you back at the camera to show you how to do this. Let's talk about creating your pattern for the main part of the poncho. And you don't really create a pattern, you just work with the fabric you have. I am going to demonstrate this with a smaller piece of fabric because the actual size piece would cover my whole table and not fit within the camera frame. So first of all, you want a general idea of about how tall the person is that you are making this for. So I am 5'3". And then you're going to purchase your fabric, and I want to demonstrate. So when you buy your fleece, you know, it's on a big bolt, right? And they unwind fabric from the bolt and they measure this way for the yardage. And that is a dimension that can change. Like you can buy 1.5 yards, which is what I personally use for mine, or you can buy 3 yards, and it'll be much longer this way. But no matter how many yards you buy, it is only going to be 60-inch wide. So that is a fixed dimension that you have to work with. Now for me personally, I like this dimension to go down the front and back of my body. So I have 30 inches down the front, 30 inches down the back. And then, like I said, I use 54 inches or 1.5 yards to go across my arms, and that hits me a little above the wrist. Remember that in general, people's arm span from fingertip to fingertip is about the same as their height. Once in a while, it's a little bit longer or shorter, but in general, that's a good rule of thumb. So if I was making this for a person who was much taller than me, I would need to decide, do I want it to go less down their torso, because it'll still only be 30 inches, but it might hit them at a higher point on their body because they're taller? Or do I want it to hit higher on the arm because it won't be as long this way across? Or do I need to sew multiple pieces of fabric together to get a larger piece and get more than 60 inches in one direction? So those are the decisions you have to make. What I personally do for me, and I think this works well for most women of petite to average height, is to take the 60 inches this way, and I fold this so that it is 30 inches down the front, down the back, and then I fold it again. And then here I'm going to cut 2 inches down and 4 inches across. So I'm cutting that neckline out. And then open it up, and you want to cut, actually here, let me snip a little piece off so it looks like it has a neck. All right, so we've cut a neck hole. And then when you open it up, you want to cut up the center of that neck hole. So, okay, so here is the main part of your poncho. You've got the 2 front flaps here that are going to go down the front. This is what will go down your arms. And then we need to measure this neck hole here to make the hood piece. To draft up the hood piece, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a couple measurements. First, we measure that neck hole on the actual poncho, and the other measurement we want is, you're going to take a general measurement from about collarbone to collarbone, and you can make this, tighter if you want it tighter, but I recommend a little looser up and over somebody's head. And again, you can kind of generalize this. I'm going to give you 18 inches as a halfway measurement, from the center of the head down to the shoulder. So 36 inches is a good general measurement for all the way around. And then what you want to do, you want to take half of the neck measurement, and we're going to draw it out this way. Okay, so let's say that's half of the neck measurement. And then you want to go up in the front edge here. So we'll label these. This is neck. And you want to go up half the measurement of that around the head. So if it was, let's pretend that this is half of that around the head measurement. And here's where your face would be. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and box this off. Now, we don't want a hood that's a square. So generally we're gonna draw in a neckline and it's gonna kind of curve like that. So it'll flatten out at the back of the neck and it'll be a little higher, and then it comes down in the center front, and you wanna make sure that this line is equal to that half neck measurement. Then we also like to round off the back here so you don't have like a point on your hood. So just kind of hand draw in a curve like this. And then I add a seam allowance here and all the way down this back edge of the hoodie. Okay, so that's my seam allowance there. And this is approximately the hood shape. Now, I like to cut this one on the fold. Okay, and then we're gonna cut 2 of these on the fold. So let me change the camera around so you can see what this piece of fabric looks like. So here is what that piece looks like once it's cut out. This is the curve up to the center back here of the neck. And then this is the curve that goes around here. And this folded edge is the side that's gonna go down my face. So you've cut 2 of these, and then the next step is to place them right sides together. And I'm going to add some clips to hold this fabric along the edges and keep it from shifting. And I want to sew all around this curved edge. The fleece I am working with today does not stretch, so I'm just using a straight stitch. If you're working with stretchy fleece, you're going to want to switch to a stretch stitch. So I realize that 2 big curvy pieces like this sewn together doesn't look anything like a hood yet. What you're gonna do next is turn the whole thing right side out and then fold it so that you've got one seam allowance and the seam allowance from the other side touching. And then you kind of just like push one into the other so that it's back in that hood shape, and now you can see that it is a big hood. So we need to sew this onto the neckline of the poncho. And let me get that set up so I can show you what's connecting to what. Here is my poncho neck edge. And this clip here is marking the center back of the neckline. And you can just fold this in half to figure out where the back center is. And this is right side up. So what I want to do with my hood here, it doesn't really matter which side, but I want to take one side of the seam allowance, match it with that center back edge, and then I want to mark the fold, the face edge here of my hood. And that is going to get matched up here with the front neckline, like this part. And I'm gonna kind of push this hood layer out of the way now, and I want to match up those raw edges on the neckline here. And then the same thing on the other side. I'm holding these seam allowances together. I'm marking that folded face edge on the other side. I'm gonna match that to the edge of my center front, and then match the remainder of the neckline. Now my first pass through the sewing machine, I am only going to be sewing through 2 layers. So it's 1 layer of the hood and then the layer of the neckline on the poncho getting sewn together. And I'm going to take that through the machine now. So hopefully you can see, I realize this pattern on this fabric makes it a little difficult, but this right here is the seam that I just sewed that's going around the neck. And what I want to do is I want to push all those seam allowances up towards the hood. And then I want to take the other layer of the hood and I want to pin it down on top of those. Now this can get tricky because you have to use pretty long pins to do this. But I just want to cover up all those seam allowances. Now, you absolutely could sew both layers of the hood and the neck all in one seam allowance. The reason I do it this way is because then I just have one raw edge exposed in my finished project, and Fleece doesn't fray, so you don't have to finish the raw edges, but I just feel like this is just a little more comfortable and less noticeable that there are seams and raw edges than if I had sewn all 3 layers at once, and then you'd have 3 layers of seam allowance like sticking out towards your neck. Okay, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to flip this over to go through the machine, and I am going to stitch in the ditch here, which the ditch is formed by that seam, on the right side, and that will secure the fabric on the wrong side. So here is the inside of that neck edge, and you can see the one raw edge that is out, and this is what it looks like on the outside. Like, you can't even see where the stitching was. And that's one of the things about fleece. It can be a difficult fabric to work with. It can be messy and it's thick, but it also is very forgiving. Like, if you aren't sewing perfectly in the ditch because of this pile on the fleece, you probably won't even see the stitching. But that is the last step, and then you have your poncho or wearable blanket complete with a nice thick warm hood. Now, if you really were planning to wear this outside the house and you want to keep it fastened, you can also add a button here or sew on a snap just to keep that center front closed. And that is an optional step, so I'm not going to show you how to do that part, but you can just like sew on a button. If you can't sew a buttonhole, you can actually even just snip a teeny little hole in the fleece, since it won't fray again, and then you'll be able to push the button through that without even having to sew a buttonhole. So here we go, wearable blanket. And check out this playlist for more ideas of gifts to sew.